I just want to review what we've done so far, because we're going to go on to a related topic, which is the halacha of the halachot specifically of Kever and Me-aras Machpelaha, as far as the Kohen being able to visit those places. So, as I mentioned last week, this was something that I was always scared of as a yeshiva bacher. From the times that I was a yeshiva bacher, I knew that there were some people who said you could go, some people who said you don't go, and so I always stayed away. But I figured let's look into this. It's worth examination. The first part of our shiur, which was last week, was just an overview of what we saw developing from the Makaros in both the Gemara, the Bavli, the Yerushalmi, and the Medrash, that there seems to be some equivocation as whether the bodies of Tzadikim can transmit tumor or not. We explained that the Ramban is of the opinion that the body of a tzaddik does not transmit tumor, and it was on that basis, and we also brought the Maharal, who explains the metaphysics of how the mechanism by which that works. And then we looked at various different poskim, and we looked and saw that there are many poskim who say that the only time that we can possibly argue that we suspend the laws of kahuna for the sake of a levaya can either be for a great tzaddik or for a nasi, but it seems the consensus is that we only suspend a derabanan and not a deoraisa. And yet we saw from other poskim that even suspending a deoraisa is sometimes justifiable. We saw that from the Igur de Kala, the Bnei Yisachar. And now we're going to take a slightly different direction. We're going to look at two contemporary tshuvas, and there's one other thing that has to be taken into consideration, and that is the shita of the Ravid. The Ravid in Hilchos Nazirus is of the opinion that Kohanim Bizman Hazeh are not violating any rabbinic law, any rabbinic or biblical law, by exposing themselves to tumah. Because a Kohen who already is tameh is not in violation if he exposes himself to further tumah. Now, this is not something that we paskin like, but perhaps it could be a mitigating argument in a situation where you have other arguments to make. So let's first take a look at this source. It's on page 5 of the first handout, the same one that we used last week.
With that shita, Kohanim can go to funerals. That's
right. According to that, a Kohen could justify going to a funeral. So let's take a look. It's in the Rambam is in Hilchos Nazirus Parakeh, and there are really three halachos that we'll look at the Rambam first, and then we'll look at the Ravid. For some reason, the Ravid is printed after halacha Tesvav, but really, conceptually, it should really be printed after halacha Yudzayin. But let's take a look. We'll learn the Rambam first in all three halachot, and then we'll take a look at the Ravid afterwards. Nazir shenitma lemeis tuma shiva, that if a Nazir becomes tameh, he becomes tameh because he's come in contact with a corpse. Bein betuma shu megaleach aleihen kamoshi yisbaer, bein betuma shein megaleach aleihen harei lokeh. It makes no difference whether this forces him to start his Nazirus all over again or whether it doesn't, and the Rambam says we'll detail that shortly. That's not germane to our discussion. He says, but if he does so deliberately, he's subject to Malkus. Halacha Tezayin, so skip the Ravid in the italics for just a minute. Nitma lemeis pa'amim harbei, if a Nazir exposes himself to Tumah multiple times, afal pishu chayav malkus al kol echas ve'echas lashamayim ein based kama ein based in malkinos ela echas. Even though, from a heavenly standpoint, he deserves to get malkus multiple times, but the based in down here only gives him lashes one time. V'im hisru ba'al kol pam v'pam hu mitamei v'hu mitamei loke al kol echas ve'echas. If, however, there was hasra'ah in between each time he exposed himself to a corpse. In other words, he The Edom went over to him and said, hey man, you're about to walk in the cemetery. He says, no, I don't care. And he walks into a cemetery. Then 10 minutes later, he walks out of the cemetery, and he's about to go back in. They say, don't go into that cemetery. And he goes back in anyway. So if that's the situation, then he would get malchus multiple times. And then the Rambam says in Halacha Yudzayin, Bamed dvar mamurim b'shenitma upiresh v'chazar v'naga o nasa o he'ehil. When is this true that he's subject to malchus multiple times? When he subjected himself to Tumah, and then he withdrew himself from the system of Tumah, and then v'naga onas v'chazar v'naga onas o he'ehil. And then he went back into a system of Tumah and re-exposed himself. Aval im haya nogea b'meis ve'adayin hameis biyado v'naga b'meis acher. But if he's already touching a corpse, and the corpse is already, he's holding on to the wrist of a corpse, and then he goes ahead and with his other hand he touches another corpse, so then eino chayev ela echas. Then he's only going to be liable for one malchus. Afal pisha hisru bal kol negia unegia. Even though he was warned, don't touch that other corpse. It's already bad enough that you got your hand on this corpse. Don't touch that other corpse. It sounds like a zombie movie. But anyway, the reason why you're not liable is sharei mechulal ve'omed, because you're already immersed in that first tumah, so there's no way to sort of make it worse than it currently is. It's only if you've already withdrawn from the previous tumah and then you go back in and re-expose yourself, that's when you get malchus multiple times. So now let's take a look at the Ravid. The Ravid Shita is, and this is where the italics start in line 2 of Halacha Tesvav, Nazir shenitma lameis tumas shiva v'chulei bamet dvar mamurim b'shenitma upiresh. So he's quoting the Rabbi, his Amar Avraham, this is the Ravid now speaking. Iyanti bashmur b'maseches Nazir. I looked through the Gemara in Maseches Nazir, which I don't have printed for you, but we'll speak it out. V'ra'isi de ladas Rav Yoseph, we see a machlokas there in the Gemara Nazir between Rav Yoseph and Rabbi. And they're both arguing about what Rav Huna, their Rebbe Rav Huna, what is his shita. So he says, V'ra'isi de ladas Rav Yoseph, tuma v'tuma b'chiburin shel adam b'meis, so that if you have two types of tuma, you're already attached to tumah, let's say you've got a corpse strapped to your back, and then you expose yourself to other tumah. Afilu histru bo al kol echas ve'echas eino chayav ela echas. Since you're already adhering to tumah, by re-exposing yourself to tumah while you're already adhering to a pre-existent tumah, you're only going to get malchus once. Kidatanya nazir shahayameis al kseifo v'hoshito lo meis acher patur. That, as the Brisa says, that if you have a corpse slung over your back, over your shoulder, and then you touch another corpse, then you're not liable for the second corpse. And this is all talking about a nazir, but presumably the same halacha would apply to a Kohen. But if you put down the corpse for a moment, and then you touch another corpse, so then you're going to be liable twice. Furthermore, the Gemara says that if it's two different types of exposure to tumah, let's say one type of exposure is through tumas ohel, and while I'm in the ohel, I then grab another corpse by the hand. So I have tumas ohel that I've introduced myself to, which means I'm in the same structure as a corpse, and then I grab a corpse and I hold on to it. So that's also possible for chayiv shtayim. The dafka bevas echas, but that's only true if it's simultaneous. Kigon shenichnas labayis sheish bo goses, v'shaha sham ad shemes. Hoel vehem shnei mine shemos uboim bevas achas chayiv shtayim. So therefore, you come into a house where there's a goses, and you wait there until the fellow dies. And I'm not sure if I'm explaining it correctly, but I believe that what we're talking about is a situation where you're touching and exposing yourself to tumas ohel at the same time. I think that's what he means, because a goses doesn't transmit tumah unless I'm not interpreting the Ravid correctly. However, he says v'rabba poligolei, b'chol tuma v'tuma, afilu shelo b'chiburin, eino chayav ela echas. However, then this is the point of the Gemara. The Ravid makes note of the fact that Rabbi argues with Rav Yosef. And Rabbi says that even if you remove yourself from corpse A, and then afterwards, 5 minutes later, you touch corpse B, you're only going to be liable one time. Hoil v'tamehu, because once you're already tameh, you can't be more tameh than you previously were. Umasnisa deketani alta tameh v'hu metameh chayvol kolechas ve'echas mukam le betuma uvabia. There's a brisa that says that if a person is already tameh and he's about to expose himself to other tumah, we tell him you're not allowed to do that. That's talking about where he was tameh, let's say from tumas ohel, and he now goes ahead and touches a corpse. That's when we tell him that it's prohibited because it's a different form of tumah. But if it's the same form of tumah, just re-exposure, then there's no isser, there's no additional isser. V'hada amar Rav Huna nazir shayi beveis hakvaros v'hoshita lo meso umeis acher v'noga bo chayav lesa. And that which Rav Huna is quoted as saying in the Gemara, says Rabbah, that if a person was in a cemetery and they pass you a corpse that belongs to you, let's say a relative of yours, and then you touch another corpse while you're holding the corpse that's your relative, that you're going to be chayav a second time. He says that Rabbah says Rav Huna never said that, it's not true. Because there for sure there wouldn't be a problem of tumah, because you're already holding on to the prior tumah. The Kever de Kaimala. Now this is the punchline, says the Rabbi. Now that we paskin that Rabbi v'Rav Yosef hilchasa kirabba, since whenever there's a machlokas between Rabbi and Rav Yosef, we normally side with Rabbi. Me'ata tuma v'tuma afilu piresh v'chazer v'naga patur. Says the Rabbi. Based on this, and using the klalei psak, if a person were to touch a corpse, then pull away, and then touch another corpse, he'd only be chayav once. Kohanim, bisman hazet temei mesein. Kohanim, he says, nowadays already are presumed to have tumas meis. Every Kohen that you know is presumed to already have tumas meis. V'od ein aleim chiyuv tuma, and therefore, and furthermore, there is not ein aleim chiyuv tuma. That's debated among the achronim as exactly what the Ravid means, but he basically says they're not liable for exposure to tumah. V'hamachayev osam alav lahaviraya. And anyone who wants to suggest that a Kohen is liable for exposing himself to tumah, he has to bring proof. It almost sounds like the Ravid is suggesting that because all of us Kohanim are already tameh, there's no problem for us to re-expose ourselves to tumah to go to a levaya, to go to a cemetery. Now, as you all know, we don't paskin this way. But now that we have this Ravid, sometimes poskim can use it as a sniv, as an argument that can be appended to other arguments as well. And this is precisely what a Rav Eliyahu Abirgel does. He's a posek in Eretz Yisrael. Do you know who that is? He's quite an older man now, from what I understand. This tshuva, I think, is from the 90s. And the tshuva is essentially about whether there's an issue of visiting Kivrei Tzadikim. And as you know, we saw different opinions. We saw the Pischei Tshuva and the Beis Yosef were very machmir to not allow a Kohen to visit Kivrei Tzadikim, because, as we saw in the Beis Yosef, there is no mitzvah that you can argue is compelling me to do this. It's not like there's a mitzvah to visit the kever of a tzaddik that we would say that the mitzvah in some way overrides Tumah D'Rabbanan. And furthermore, if you remember from the Pischei Tshuva, maybe that's not Tumah D'Rabbanan, maybe it's Tumah D'Oraisa. Because the only way to argue that there's only Tumah D'Rabbanan is if you have what's called a Poseach Tefach, if you have a Tefach space between the corpse and the lid of the casket. And maybe only then we would say that there's only Tumah D'Rabbanan, and perhaps b'makom mitzvah the Chachamim were not machmir. But there's no mitzvah to visit the kever of a tzaddik. So that's why it didn't really fly. Now, if you take a look in the print of, it's called Dibros Eliyahu, if you take a look at the words Ve'ulam, he's not going to quote the Munkacher, the Minchas Elazar. He says, "V'ulam b'shailos u'tshuvas minchas alazer chela gimel simin something samech dalid uveshut saba kadisha chela yeredeya simin chav gimel kasvu lahakel likanes lekivrei tzadikim mikoch spek speka." The minchas alazer and this other sefer, the Saba Kadisha, want to argue that it is permitted to visit the graves of tzadikim using the argument of a spek speka. Who's learning for smicha now? Did you get the kuntra spek speka yet?
I just touched it yesterday.
Kofi and Kofi Yud. All right, lots of luck, buddy. Simi also, right? Yeah, it'll keep you busy for a while. All right, v'hu lefi. So what is a spek sveka, right? So we know a spek sveka is that we have two svekas, one built on top of the other, to give us the power of a leniency. V'hu lefi d'sfirle laharayvid perikei min naziras halacha tesvav shahoel v'hakohanim bizman hazet temei meisim heim ein alehem yoser chiyo v'ser tumah. So the first principle that we have is that nowadays the Ravid had said that Kohanim are presumed to have tumas meis, and therefore there's no longer a problem for them, there's no longer an isser for them to re-expose themselves to tumah. V'hainu shein isser bizman hazeh lekohen letame ein mishnah lamelech sof perak gimel me'evel shekein haven b'das harayvin. That's the way the Mishnah Lamelech understands the Ravid. Aval harambam v'rabbeinu tam v'hara shel chastumas kohanim siman vav v'rabbeinu eliezer mimitz b'sefer yereim siman shenin aleph sa. All the other Rishonim, including the Rambam and the Rosh and many others, Savri degam bizman hazeh aser lekohen litame lemeis ayin sham. They hold that no, it is aser midioraisa today still for Kohanim to expose themselves to tumah. V'im kain safek in kivrei tzadikim etamim. So here's Asfek Sveika, says the Minchas Elazar. We have a suffix on the poskim whether the Kever, whether a tzaddik transmits tumah or not. Remember, we wanted to suggest this from that famous Mishlei, Medrash Mishlei in about Rabbi Akiva, who died, and Eliyahu Hanavi went to try to transport his corpse, even though he was a Kohen. And we had a machlokas between the Ramban and Tosfos exactly what that Medrash was trying to convey. The Tosfos had said that Eliyahu Hanavi was only pushing off Rabbi Yehoshua. The reason why he was allowed to carry him was not because Rabbi Akiva did not transmit Tumah, argues Tosfos, but rather because it was a Meis Mitzvah. But the Ramban says, Chas v'chalila, to say such a thing, that Eliyahu Hanavi would mislead us for all posterity, that this should be recorded and that we would be misled, that's not possible. And therefore the Ramban concludes that Taka, the bodies of Tzadikim, do not transmit Tumah. So that's our suffix number one. Do we go like Tosfos? Do we go like the Ramban? Is it Tzadik Metame or not? The imtim salomar shikein, and even if you're going to tell me that a tzaddik does transmit tumah, ulai halacha kerayve de'ein isra ala kohanim lihitamos bisman hazeh hol uvalav hachi tamei meisim heim. Maybe there's no isser today of a kohen being metame lemeis. In other words, even on the tzad, that a tzaddik is metame, but I'm a kohen bisman hazeh, maybe I have no isser because the halacha is like the Ravid. And therefore he says, it's a spek sveka hamishapech, which you'll learn about in Siman Kof Yud, in the kuntras spek sveka from the Shach, that it has to go forwards and backwards in order to be a legitimate spek sveka, right? But the point is that that's what he argues. He says, ulam harbe poskim nakti le'isser ayin b'shut yechavedas. That's a misprint. It should be yechavedas. He's quoting Rabbi Ovadia Yosef, Zecher Tzadik V'Kadosh Livracha, who was clearly machmir and said that you cannot be metame for kivrei tzadikim bizman hazeh, and he goes through a list of other poskim. Okay, and therefore it's a mina kavua midoros that includes that paragraph. She'ein hakohanim nichnasim lekivrei tzadikim. Now we could end the tshuva there, and that would be great. So, if you're a Kohen, don't go to the Kever of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. If you're a Kohen, don't go to the Kever of Shmuel Hanavi. If you're a Kohen, don't go to the Kever of Rabbi Akiva. If you're a Kohen, don't go to the Kever of Yoseph HaTzadik. Okay? That's all well and good. But Saul was bothered because Saul said, I know Kohanim that go to Kever Rachel Moras HaMachpelaha. Right?
Do we know that the actual Kvarim are in those
various buildings.
That's
Kever Rachel is a suffix. They don't know that Kever Rachel is really Kever Rachel.
right. The Arizal is responsible for designating a number of Kivrei Tzadikim that we assume are buried where they're buried today. Do we know for sure? I'm going to go through some archaeological stuff with you in just a minute from a tshuva from the Rosh Kollel in Kiryat Arba. We'll talk about that in a second. It's a good point. Do we know? I'm not sure if we know. Could be Kever Rachel is not there. But let's take a look. He says now, Ulam, lekever Rachel imenu, v'chein lekivrei ha'avot, ra'iti legaon ha'meforsam harishon letzion hagon Rabbi Mordechai Eliyahu Shlita. So this is when Rabbi Mordechai Eliyahu was still alive. I think this tshuva is from Tafshin Nun Tet, which is 99. Is that 1999 or 89? I don't remember anymore. I think it's 99. Yeah. I think it's 99. It shows you how old I am. Okay. All right. We're getting old, Rabbi Say. Okay. So anyway, the Sifro Sefer Halacha Chelek Bet Sif Chavdalet Shekasav Yesh Kohanim Sheholchim Litbalel Bekivrei Tzadikim V'Yosh Shemonim Atzmam. So Rav Mordechai Eliyahu was asked the following question. He says that we know that there are some tzaddikim who go to the kvarim of tzaddikim, and some that desist. And I want to know what the halacha is. Aval lekever Rachel imenu v'chein lekivrei ha'avot mutar. But Rav Mordechai Eliyahu says, but there's no safek. It is absolutely permitted. Rav Mordechai Eliyahu paskind for a Kohen to go to Kever Rachel and to go to the Me-aras Machpelaha. Umekoro ayin batei kehuna simin chav gimel v'ayin be'eduto shel hagri alafia b'sifro avat Hashem amud kuf chavchei hagaha pei zayin adkan. Rav Mordechai quotes a source for this based upon the testimony of Hagri Alafia. Now, what is that? What is that edus? V'hinei matzasi lagon sitz Eliezer chelek tesvav simen samech hei v'gam hevi divrei Hagri Alafia b'miluim v'acharei shehevi sham hadiyunim b'sifrei haposkim al odot bikor kohanim al kivrei tzadikim v'rabu gam rabu ha'osrim. So the Tzitz Eliezer deals with this in a tshuva. He brings the edus, he brings the testimony of this Rav Alafia, probably from the 19th century or earlier. And he says, V'zel l'shano b'amud kuf chavches hinei, or hagar rather pei zayin, keta mafli, odot kever Rachel imenu, v'hinini ma'atiko bazeh b'l'shano hamalei. So he basically says, this is what I'm quoting from him on page 128, footnote 87, the paragraph, an unbelievable paragraph about the kever of Rachel imenu. V'hinini roshem lecha ma'shehed li Rav Rachumai devei Rafael Yisrael. This is Rav Alafia apparently speaking. He says, I'm now going to tell you, I'm going to write down for you exactly what was testified to me by this other Rabbi Rachumai devei Rafael, or devei Rafael Yisrael. Ki bimei aviv harav Rabbi Yitzchak v'harav Rabbi Yom Tov Yisrael v'od Rav sheshachachti shmo. In the lifetime of these three rabbis, I remember the first two. I don't remember the last rabbi's name. Kishabanu kotlei BAYT kvurat Rachel imenu. When they built the walls of the structure of Rachel imenu v'hamat seva hagedola, and the big monument on top of it, v'chizukum v'tikanum heitev, and they reinforced it and made it very sturdy and strong. Chashashu lahem elu harabanim hanizkarim mishum knisata kohanim l'sham. When they built this entire structure, they had in mind that we're worried that maybe Kohanim will come in and enter. V'im kivrei hatzadikim etami imim lav. And they didn't know, because it's a suffix, whether a tzaddik corpse is metami or not. And as we know, this is part of the machlokes, the Tosfos and the Ramban, and they're malachim, and how are we supposed to decide between the two? V'latzeit chovat kol hadeot u'li'inatzel midin shamayim u'lahatir lahem lakohanim kinisatam l'sham b'lishom pikpuk v'nidnud michshash aveira. And in order to be able to be yotze, it's a beautiful language, in order to be able to yotze all shilas and to avoid any accountability to heaven for having allowed a structure where Kohanim would be nichshol. So he says, this is what we did. Asu chalal gadol betoch hakipa shel hakever kidin v'chahalacha. What they did is they constructed a large atrium, like a dome, over the kever, which would create a significant airspace over the kever. Ve'al gabe hakipa shel hachalal hahu banu hamatzeva hagevoha hazot ha'oleh al hachalonot. And on that dome of this large atrium space, they built a monument which is very high up and that goes above the windows. ומאז ואילך כל הרבנים והחסידים שהם כהנים ומדקדקים על עצמם בכל מן חומר יתרה נכנסים לשם בלי פקפוק. And it was from that day that they created this dome on top of Kever Rachel to protect or prevent the tumah from rising up. That is what prompted all Kohanim, even the ones who are the most medakdek in halacha, to be able to come into the area above that. Uve'en omer, uve'en devarim, umizet teda ki kol takanot harishonim kamalachim kulam hayunasim al pi hadin ve'hahalacha. And everyone goes in without any shaila, and in this way we've covered all our bases. No one has any shailas. No one has any questions anymore. Uvechen al titchakeim od listor divreihem uma'aseihem v'sigehem kehem yardu lu'umka shel halacha. So Rav Alafia writes, he says, therefore, don't be such an uber chacham, don't be such a tzaddik. You know, if they already took the proper steps to protect Kohanim from becoming tamei, don't be machmir unnecessarily. Umeitanu ne'elam kol davar, and everything is hidden from us anyway. We're like nobody compared to them. V'lachein rashamti idud zeh b'sefer ladat ma ya'aseh Yisrael v'kohanehem v'shalom al kol Yisrael v'al rabbanan v'talmidehon ad kan l'shalom. And I've written all this, that this should be a testimony that no one should ever question the permissibility of entering into above, I guess. Now, I'm not even really familiar with the structure of Kever Rachel. I've visited there once. I didn't go inside. But do you go above the dome? Or that's the part that I'm not really clear about. Isn't the dome over the structure?
That's another one.
Oh, so there must be another one. So there's a lower dome that's probably below the floor, and then there's the dome on top. So
maybe they mean like the Kever is always like a round thing. Maybe they mean that as a dome.
Okay.
There's a round.
Anyway,
What inside?
basically what he's testified is that when they built this structure in the first place, they took every precaution to avoid any shaila whatsoever that should be a problem for a Kohen to enter in. Harei lefanenu edut merav chasidu mikubal ki based in gadol sherabanim meforsanim b'shmotehem trei migav tlata. So he says that we have even the names of the rabbanim, 2 out of the 3. Nebuch, that third guy, he couldn't remember his name. Probably fell asleep during his drasha too. Shetaflu b'hakomas hamatzeva hagdola shel Rachel imein. Right, so these great rabbis put in such great effort to build this matzeva of Rachel Imenu. V'dagu meirosha hamatzeva tukam b'tzura she'hakohanim yuchlu likanei sham b'li shum pikpuk. And look to what great extents they went to make sure that the Kohanim could walk in without any hesitation whatsoever. Va'afil hamidaktikim al atzmam b'chol min chumra yicholim gam kin likanes b'lo shum pikpuk. And therefore Rabbi Birgel writes, he says, therefore this testimony is legitimate. Any Kohen can go in, no matter how machmir you are, no matter how stringent you are in observance. You shouldn't feel any qualms whatsoever going into Kever Rachel Imenu. V'lichora kasher, but now I'm left with a question, says Rabbi Birgel. He says, Ho'il v'hamakor l'may de pasak hagon Rav Mordechai Eliyahu shlita lahatir l'kohanim levaker b'me-arat ha-Machpelaha hu me'idut chasida kadisha hagri alafia zatzal v'hata me'iduto al kever Rachel bilvad. I don't understand. Rav Mordechai Eliyahu extrapolated this testimony. This gri alafia was only giving edus on kever Rachel. How can you now extrapolate it to Me-aras ha-Machpelaha? How can you say that once I know that Kever Rachel is okay, then for sure Me-aras ha-Machpelaha is okay as well? And the problem is that Rav Eliyahu was quoting this as his support to permit going to both. But they're clear. But the tshuva in the testimony is clearly only about Kever Rachel. It's not about Me-aras Machpelaha in Chevron, right? So he says. Just we'll go to start the next paragraph. Ulam b'sichati b'nosei hanal im hagon Mordechai Eliyahu shlita. I asked him this question. So you know what he told me? He says, Heshivani hoil ubarur me'al l'chol safek she'oto ra'ayon baneha or benuya or what? Biniya. She'oto rayon biniya shebanu et Kever Rachel oto rayon eish b'merat HaMachpelaha mishum she'hakevarim hem lamata b'ma'or gedol v'yesh chalal gadol. He says you have to assume that the very same einfal that they used to protect Kohanim from Tumah, from Rachel Imenu, because they built a big dome with a lot of airspace between the Kever and the ceiling to protect Tumah, to prevent Tumah from rising, that same einfal was used in designing the Me-aras Machpelaha, because we know that's what exists in the Me-aras Machpelaha, that where the graves actually are, there is a large space between the graves and the ceiling of the basement where the graves are, and so therefore above that will also be protected from any tumah rising above it, and therefore bein hakvarot lamatzevot asher eina tumah bokat. He says, clearly it's between the kever and the monuments that we are above the kever. There's a lot of space, and therefore the tumah does not have the opportunity to shoot up, and therefore v'rayon Rachel misham nilkach kedei lahatil hakohanim levaker bekever Rachel lo pikpok. And undoubtedly, where did you think they got the idea of constructing the building for Kever Rachel that way? They got it from visiting Me-aras Machpelaha in Hebron. And they figured, look, what a great idea. Now, because we know Kohanim can visit Me-aras Machpelaha, so we'll do the same thing for Kever Rachel. Kever Rachel comes centuries. The structure comes centuries after the structure of Me-aras Machpelaha, which is built in the medieval period. Kever Rachel is probably a couple hundred years old. That's it. So therefore, he says, that was Rav Mordechai Eliyahu's hashara, that the way they got the idea for Kever Rachel, even though there's no testimony for this, but that's his hashara. That was Rav Mordechai Eliyahu's hashara. And therefore, he said it's okay for Me-aras Machpelaha as well. V'shum ra'iti lagaon b'chorei Yaakov chelak Yoredei Simchav ma'asei Rab al Hagon ha'mekubal hagadol Shaul dvek hakoyin zatzal shahi yachad b'matzevas Kever Rachel b'levayat kama rabbonim v'sharav hayanichnas lekever Rachel afal pishi hakoyin gadol ayin sham. And he says, I also saw that a tshuva where the great Rav Shaul Dvek, who was, I guess, is one of probably a Syrian Kohen, a leader of the Syrian community, he also went into Kever Rachel without any hesitation. And his conclusion, therefore, is, he says, clearly, even though there's a spek sveka that the Minchas Elazar wants to argue, but nevertheless, you're dealing with a sveka deoraisa, according to many poskim, and therefore he does not permit you to visit Kivrei Tzadikim. As far as Me-aras Machpelaha and Kever Rachel, notice his language. He says, "Hakohanim harotzim levaker sham lishpoch tzikon or tzakaran." I'm not sure, or tzikon lachasham rishaim. That if a Kohen wants to pour out his heart to Hashem and these holy places, he has permission. Not that he says it's mutter, not that he says completely that it's mutar, it's rashai, which is like, okay, you have a heter if you need it. You have a heter. You want a heter, you have a heter. If you feel you need to pour out your heart to Hashem. So it's not a very strong heter. He's not saying there shouldn't be any pikpuk and gimgum and like all the language that Rav Alafia had testified about. He's not really it doesn't sound like he's so crazy about Rav Mordechai Eliyahu's extrapolation to Me-aras Machpelaha. But if you want to rely on it, Rav Mordechai Eliyahu is no one to sneeze at. You can certainly rely on that. Okay. That's what I wanted you to finish off from the first packet. Let's go on. This is a comprehensive tshuva that was written by Rav Yoezer Ariel, who was the Rosh Kollel of the Yeshivat Nir in Kiryat Arba. It is a masterful essay that takes into account both archaeological data as well as halacha. And it's just, we won't have time to go through all of it. It's immense. But it's worth going through step by step because he touches on so many important points. So, and he points out that after the Six-Day War, there was a lot of new data that came out about the actual structure of Me-aras Machpelaha. And the truth is, we're probably still learning new things, even today. We're going to skip around. So let's go to where the big aleph is on page 1. Ti'ur ha-me-ara v'ha-mivneh she'aleha. Describing the cave itself, where the tzadikim, where the avos are supposedly buried, and the structure that is above it. So he says ha-me-ara, number 1, ha-me-ara, the actual cave. So where is the cave? Where is the Me-aras Machpelaha? When you go to that building in Hebron, where is the actual cave? Ha-me-ara b'tzurasa ha-mekoris hi me-ara tat-karka'it chatzuva b'sela. So the first thing you need to know, he says, is that the graves themselves are carved into the stone underground. That's where the graves are. Uvetocha kuchim shebahem mikivrei ha'avot ve'ayimahot. And inside that stone, inside that rock that's underground, are carved out kuchim. What would you translate a kuch as? A crypt, right? Very good. A crypt of the patriarchs and the matriarchs. Kach gam pashtut lashon me-ara muskeret b'Torah. That's actually the simple import of the word me-ara. Me-ara meaning a cave, but usually is translated as a subterraneous cave that is like a cleft in the rock. And as it says, V'yitein lias me-aras Machpelaha asher b'ktsei sadehu. That's why Avraham said, I want to buy this from Ephraim. Lefi ti'urim historiyim mitkufat hakivush hatzalvani, that based on descriptions, historical descriptions from the period of the Crusades, yardu hanizirim letochechei ha-me-ara kedei lachkor et tocha. There were monks during that medieval period, during the Crusades, probably 11th, 12th centuries, 13th centuries, that went into these crypts that were underground in order to examine them. Lemarbei hatzar hanizirim paschu shlosha kuchim. Unfortunately, based on historical documents, you're not going to like this, but the monks opened up 3 of the crypts, v'hotziu mitochem es ha'atzamos, and they pulled out the remains. Shatfu es ha'atzamos, they washed them, they rinsed them off, I guess they cleaned them. I guess that they felt that they were respecting the dead. V'achar kach ichnisu osam la'aronos kevura me'evan, sarcophagos, or sarcophagim. And then afterwards, they took the bones, the remains of the crypt bones from the 3 of the crypts, and put them in sarcophagi, in these boxes, stone boxes, which was the practice of burial back then. At some time later, they took these stone boxes and stuck them back in the crypts. Kach oleh mikisvei Rabbi Binyamin mitodela, Rabbi Petachia mirogensbord, shekatvu shiyardu lema'ara v'hashomer hera lehem et hakuchim shebehem kevurim ha'avot. This is what comes from the testimony of these 2 great rabbis, Rabbi Binyamin mitodela and Rabbi Petachia mirogensbord. These are 2 Rishonim who offer this testimony. Nosaf lekach matzu hanazirim 15 kadim meleim atzamot, or 15 kadim meleim atzamot. In addition to that, the Nazirim, the monks, discovered 15 jars that were filled with bones. In addition to the sarcophagi that were in the crypts, they discovered 15 jars filled with bone. Gam Rabbi Binyamin mitodela shehigia bimei habinaim lama'ara. Rabbi Binyamin mitodela, who reached there in the medieval period, Kosev al kiyuman shel kadei hacheres im atzamot Yehudim. He also talks about these large jugs that were filled with Jewish remains. He writes, "V'sham chavuyot meleot atzamot miYisrael, shahayu mivi'in sham beitehem Beit Yisrael kol echad ve'echad atzamot avotav u'manichim sham ad hayom hazeh." See, this is stuff that's shocking to me because I never knew this. Jews used to bring the remains of their ancestors, of their parents and grandparents. They would transport their remains to the place of Me-aras Machpelaha, put the remains in large jugs, and leave them there by the avos and the imahos. So one thing you have to realize, according to this testimony, it's not just 4 pairs of Jews, of tzadikim, who are buried in that subterraneous area of the Me-aras Machpelaha. You've got other Yidden there too. And I can't assure you that all of them were tzadikim. Okay? We like to think that they were all tzadikim, but who knows? Now, based on that, you've already got a separate problem, which is even if you're going to argue like the Minchas Elazar that there's a Sfek Sveika, right? Because maybe Kivrei Tzadikim are not Metame, you don't have Kivrei Tzadikim in Me-aras Machpelaha anymore. Okay, this is like a real eye-opener, right? Let's go on. Lefi Eidut Rabbi Noam Arnon. We've met Noam Arnon, haven't we? You go to Hebron. Is Rabbi Noam Arnon still there? Yeah. Did we meet him?
No, he's there.
You know Rabbi Arnon? Sheyarad la Me-ara. He testifies. He says, I went down to the lowest level, and Itamar Shnevais, who was Ben Chayalei HaMiluim sheishtatfu bechakirat ha-Me-ara beroshot ha-Professor Yavin. So he says, Nimtzu atzamot mefuzarim ben kadei hacheres hashvurim, that we also found, based on more recent archaeological discoveries, they also found scattered bones among the shattered jars that were in that area. Bekarkais Me-aras HaMachpelaha, on the floor of this Ma'ara, on the floor of this stone cave. Okay, skip the parentheses. Uvdazu mochicha shahagoyim lo nahagu kavod ba'atzamot hamitzuyot bekadim. Their discovery indicates that the Gentiles who were the custodians of this area did not treat the remains respectfully. Despite the fact that the Crusaders thought that these remains were the remains of the 12 tribes of Israel, because there is a legend that not only were the Avos and the Imos buried there, but even the 12 Shvatim were also buried there. De'azu kasav gam Yosifos, he writes that as well. Josephus writes this. Aval b'sifrei Devarim lamed gimel samech kaimas machlokes im Ruvain nikvar b'ma'ara. There's a machlokes in the Sifri whether Ruvain is buried in the Me-aras Machpelaha or not. Mikol adeo sham oleh sheshar hashvatim nikbru ish benachaloso v'kach gam nichtav b'sefer hayashar. And from the Sifri it seems that the only question is whether Ruvain was buried there or not like the Crusaders thought that all the other tribes were buried there as well. Eich sheyiyeh. Let's skip now. Number 2, hamivneh sha'al ha-Me-ara. Now let's talk about the structure that is above the Me-aras Machpelaha, that is above the cave. Hamivneh sha'al Me-aras Machpelaha nivneh b'tkufat BAYT sheni. So it was built during the Second Temple period, the original structure that's above the cave. V'yesh svurim shenivna al yedei hordus. Some even say that Herod built it. Hamivneh mechulak lishtei komot. It's divided into 2 floors. Hakoma harishona nimtzeit me'al me'arat hamachpelaha ve'hasadeh shesevivoteha. The first floor is just above the cave, and is also built over the field that is around the cave. Hakoma hashniya mishameshet hayom ulam tefila v'nivneta mitechila lelo tikra. The second floor, which is where people go today, it was originally designed for prayer. It was originally built without a roof. Mu'char yoter b'tekufa habizantit v'hamuslamit nosaf hagag l'koma hashniya. Later on, during the Byzantine and the Islamic period of rulership, they added a rooftop afterwards. Shekayam ad hayom me'al ulam Yitzchak. That is now, to this day, is above what's known as the Isaac Hall, or the Isaac Atrium, okay? Let's go on. We're going to skip a little bit further. Skip now to page 2. Paragraph that is marked number 4. Chalal HaKoma HaRishona. The airspace of this first floor atrium where no one goes. He says, Lefi kol hatiurim hahistoriyim v'totzaot hamechakrim hachadashim shuhuzkaru le'el. He says, based upon all of the historical descriptions and based on the archaeological discoveries of more recent explorers, Kayam chalal hamafrid bein tachtit hakoma harishona lekoma shemei aleha. There is a significant amount of airspace between the floor of the first story to the story that is above it, where people gather for prayer. Gova hachalal b'makom hapetachim hamovilim lama'ara hu ke-3 meter. He says, or 3 meter. It seems that the height of the airspace where the apertures are for people who want to throw things into the ma'ara is about 3 meters high. In other words, there's 3 meters of airspace, it seems. But we haven't yet explored all of the airspace of this first floor. But we know at least the very minimum is there's 3 meters of separation from the floor to the ceiling of this first room that's above, the first story that's above Me-aras Machpelaha. Now, let's go on. Bays. This is the big issue. The big question now is, can you argue that this first story, which divides between where people congregate and below in the cave, can you say that that airspace creates a separation to prevent tumah from going upwards? And this is the crucial point that we haven't yet seen discussed up above, but it's very important to discuss. L'chora efshar haya ladun lahatir lakohanim lihikanes lemivneh she'al hame'ora. We l'chora should have been able to say that it's permitted to allow kohanim to go into the structure that's above the cave. Mishum shelefi kol hamechakrim kayam chalal shel 3 meter shemafrid bein tikrat hame'ara hamekorit uvein tikra hakoma rishana shel hamivneh she'aleha. We know that there's at least 3 meters of airspace between the cave and the floor where people are standing. Lefi klalei hatumah kishiyesh chalal tefach shemafrid bein hakever bein hatikra shema'a hila al hatumah hatikra nechshevet la'ohel shechotzeitz ba'ad hatumah. And as we learned last week, we have a general principle that when you have a tefach of airspace, that's that the tumah is prevented from traveling above the barrier that's above the airspace. Halacha zu mevu'eret b'mishnah. This halacha is explained very clearly in the Mishnah, and let's learn the Mishnah together in Ohalos to really to get a taste of it. Hatuma b'koiso. So the Mishnah states as follows: if there is a source of tumah, let's say there's a piece of a corpse that is embedded within a wall, okay? Umekoma tefach al rum tefach, and there's airspace within this pocket that's in the wall that has the corpse material. It is 1 by 1 by 1 cubic tefach. Kol ha'aliyos shel gaba afilu hein 10 temeos. So surprisingly, the Mishnah in Ohalos says that any structure that is built above this wall, if this wall is a supporting wall, either in the center or on the side of the atrium that is above it, then everything becomes tameh. Haisa aleh al gabe aliyah al gabe shnei batim hi temeah v'chol ha'aliyot sha'al gaba tehorot. If, however, there was an attic that was built on 2 houses, so then the wall itself is tameh, but all the attics are on top of it are tahor. Now, what does that mean? So So the Rav explains as follows. He says, "B'mishnah zeh kayam chiluk ben hareisha l'seifa." What's the difference between the Reish and the Sefer, where we said that the Tumah goes all the way up? The Tumah that shoots out from the wall, from this where this corpse material it is, goes into the second floor. Eina overet lekoma hashlishit. We have two rooms that are supported by this wall, but it doesn't go up to the third floor. Ki tikrat hakoma hashniya mishameshet ohel shechotzeitz umonea ba'ad hatuma la'atlot lekoma shlishit. Because the ceiling of the second story acts as an ohel, which stops the tumah from going up above. Now, the difference between case 1 and case 2 seems to be is that in case number 2, the wall that has the grave, the corpse material in it, is not acting as a supporting wall for the third story. Because this, in case number 2, the supporting wall is running down the center of two adjacent homes, and above the two adjacent homes, there's one atrium that's built on both of them. So that center wall that has the corpse material in it is only acting as a supporting wall for the two structures on the second story, but not acting as a supporting wall for the atrium that's on the third story. Since it's not acting as a support for that third story, therefore the ceiling of the second story prevents the tumah from going up any further. So you've got the first story is where you've got these wall structures that have tumah in them. You've got the second story that are supported by these walls that have tumah in them. And the third story, because it's not being supported by that wall that has tumah in it, will be protected from the tumah traveling any further up. He then brings the Rambam in his Perush HaMishnayos to help explain that. HaRambam bePerush HaMishnayos marchiv et habiur. He just expands on that. He says, Hashoresh asher ro'ishi and iskar tamid shahatuma. All right, you know what? We don't have time. Let me just go on, therefore. He says, therefore, let's go on and talk about the michseh hapetach lahoradat hanerot. But basically, before that, just go to that little small paragraph. He says, Lefi halachot elu, efshar lahasik lichaora, shemikivan shebein marat ha-machpelaha uvein tikrat ha-koma rishona shel ha-mivneh mafrid chalal harbe yoter mitefach, hatikra ma'ahila ala chalal harek sheme'al ha-me'ara v'chotzetzet bifnei ha-tumah. It is on that basis that we could make the argument, since there's this pocket of air in this one story, there is this rooftop that is not being supported by the graves, right? Acts as a separation, acts as an ohel, and prevents the tumah from going up to the floor where people are standing. However, it's not so simple. Then he goes in the next question. Lefiha hanacha shehatikra lichora chotzetzet. Yesh laduni michseh sha'al hapetach lahoradat nerot shenimtza betikrat hakoma harishona chotzeitz ba'ad hatuma. We have to ask ourselves the question. Apparently, there's a practice of lowering candles, and there's some kind of door in the floor. Will that be a problem or not? We're not going to go into that shaila, but I just wanted to raise that for you, to show you that he raises this as an issue. Turn to page 3. Page 3. In number 3, Ha'im mivneh chalul ve'atum chodzeitz ba'ad hatuma. And this is where he throws a wrench into the whole thing. Quoting a Tiferes Yisrael. Al af shekayam lichora nimok letaheret hakoma hashniya shebimivneh me'al ha'ma'ara. There's definitely room to argue that the second story where people gather for prayer should be tahor and should be allowed for Kohanim to go. Ein lahatir k'nisat Kohanim lemivneh hazeh. We still should not permit Kohanim to go into this area. Why? Because befeirush Tiferes Yisrael maseches ohalos, Katav, the Tiferes Yisrael writes as follows: Aval tikrat ohel zeh shesamuch lekever lama'ala ulamata chotzeitz shelo tibaka tuma lahalan lamayla ulamata michutz laohel. He says the Tiferes Yisrael acknowledges that when you have a chalal tefach, you have a tefach of airspace, and you have a ceiling above that, that ceiling protects the tumah from going beyond that barrier. Mihu, and this is where the Tiferes Yisrael qualifies it. He completely changes the halacha. Hainu davka keshe ha'ohel shelamayla ulamata mikever hasatum patuach tefach al tefach min hatzad. The Tiferes Yisrael, we had seen this, an allusion to this, is that's only true if that airspace which separates and creates that ceiling for the tumah not to go beyond has on the side of that area has a 1-by-1 window to allow the noxious tumah metaphysical gases to escape. But if the tumah is trapped and confined within that completely enclosed airspace, then the ceiling does not prevent the tumah from rising above. The tumah does rise above. So this is the chiddush of the Tiferes Yisrael, and I'm not going to spend time analyzing where the Tiferes Yisrael knows this from. That's probably a separate shiur unto itself. So he says, well, we'll see. He says, "Az eno bokeh shuv mitoch tikras ha'oel hahu v'hala." Aval im gam ha'oel hahu sasum. But if that airspace enclosure is also completely enclosed and sealed, af she'ein la'oel hahu din kever satum mamash l'tamei kol sevivav. Even though that enclosed airspace, which is completely enclosed on all sides, does not itself have a din of a kever, such that a Kohen cannot even go to the proximity, because we know that a Kohen can't even approach within 4 amos of a kever. So we won't assign it the status of a kever mamish, mide'ein barak hispashtus hatuma, because it only has the extension of tumah from the kever that's below it. Al kopanim lo gora ohel zeh she'al gabe kever satum me'ol shel gabe tumah ritzutza shebokas va'ola afilu la'asar olim sugurim shezelamayla mizeh v'zelamata mizeh ad harakia v'ad tahom k'moshen yisbor le'el. But the Tiferes Yisrael says, but it's not going to stop tumah from penetrating beyond it, and therefore the tumah will go up beyond that airspace unless there is an aperture present. Now, the rest of the tshuva, there's a lot more stuff here. But what I wanted to extract from here, from what Rav Ariel states, is that there are those who have argued that there is an aperture present. There is an aperture present on the first floor where there's that pocket of airspace, and people pass either kvittelach there, or there's by the stair, one of the stairs of there's a place where there's an aperture there. When I was in Hebron, was it David Wilder? Is that his name? He told me that there is such an aperture present, and therefore there should be no shaila. However, Rav Ariel is not so convinced. And the only thing that he has additional questions about, does the actual structure of Me-aras HaMachpelaha have a din of tumah also? Or is it only usher to go inside? In other words, can a Kohen touch the outside mivneh, the outside structure, or does the whole thing have a din of a kever? And that also has to be deliberated upon, but it really takes a careful analysis of the entire architecture that has been built on for centuries. And it's not a pashut thing. It's not a simple thing to do. So in conclusion, and this is what he writes in his conclusion, so therefore he writes on page 6, Misikumo shel ma'amar ze oleh, he says, from all of what we've said is, Shahamivneh she'al ha'me'ara atum, that the structure that is above the cave is actually sealed off. Lefichach eino chotzeis b'fnei hatuma, ve'af nepach kula lekever atum sheish litrachek mimenu dalet tvachim. He's actually quite machmer. He says you have to distance yourself from the entire building of the Me-aras HaMachpelaha for tvachim in order not to be considered coming within the vicinity of a kever. L'chaora ilu hayachur chalul tefach b'tzad b'kirot hamivneh hayimivneh nechshav la'ol shechotzeis baratuma nimtzeit mitachad lakarkit hamivneh. He says if there was an aperture in that first floor on the side, then we could consider it to be an ohel that stops tumah from going above. He says, Yesh letzayin shechur misug zeh haya kvar patuch klape chutz b'meshech me'od shanim b'tzad darom mizrach He says there was such an aperture that had been opened up to the outside in the last few hundred years, or for a few hundred years, on the southeastern side, me'al hamadrega hashviyat, above the seventh step, she'eleha utar laYehudim lahagia. And the Rav Mibar Tanura says that he davened opposite that window. If you skip another paragraph, he says, Ela shegam b'mikrazeh yihi asur lakonim lihikanes lemivneh. But even that would not permit the Kohanim to enter into the structure, b'shah sheha'aravim potchim et hapetach lo horadat neirot, because the Arabs actually open up. They have a door, that a floor door that they open up to lower from the place where people daven, to lower the candles into the lower area. And he said that's actually opening up. That's no longer, then you no longer have this ohel that's chotzeitz bifnei hatuma anymore, because that door has been opened up, and that creates another problem. And he says, Yesh letzayin, the next paragraph, shegam lifnei kom hamedina nahagu hakonim litkarev lekir hame'ara yidei hamadrega hashviyut lo harchakat al tfachim. He testifies in the name of the famous Nazir of the famous Nazir of the father of Shar Yoshev Kohen, that he used to stand by the seventh step, even though he was a Kohen. He says, "Hanimok leheter zeh haya kechol hanireh mishum shamivneh haya patuach b'chur shel tefach liyad hamadrega hashviyit v'lo haya ohel me'al hamadrega hashviyit." It must be because in that time the Nazir was able to ascertain that there was an aperture that was opened in that first enclosed area, the first floor area, and furthermore he was able to ascertain that the Arabs were not opening that trap door to lower the candles. Okay, fine. Ela shepetichato hamechudeshet shel achor amnam tisalek mehavnivneh din shel kever atum umutar yilakonim l'kar ulagat b'mivneh mibachutz. So opening up a new aperture, he says, would be desirable, because that would allow Kohanim at least to touch the structure from the outside. Avaladain lo tipater baya acheret hamivneh me'al marat Machpelaha mechubar mitzafon lemarav leulam hajualiyah. There's a certain section, if you go, there's this, in this whole website, they have this whole fascinating map of the entire Maras Machpelaha compound. It's like a mamish, a compound that's been built over centuries. He says there's a certain part called the Jualiyah. It was built by a guy named Al-Jalla, I think was his name. As one of the sultans from the Malik period, and the Malmuk period, and he built this structure. He says, he says there's a problem. He says there are people who go to they do bris milas, and they have a seuda in this atrium that's adjacent to the Maras Machpelaha. There may be actual remains buried there of Jews, and he says that's a separate problem. And basically, his recommendation is for Kohanim to stay away. His recommendation, and this is the Rav, the Rosh Kollel of Kiryat Arba Kollel. So. It's heavy stuff. So I just want to tell you that, therefore, based on this preliminary research, a Kohen should feel more comfortable going to Kever Rachel, based on the psak of Rav Mordechai Eliyahu, and based on the testimony of this Rav Alafia. But I am very reticent to permit any Kohen to go to Maras Machpelaha, based on what the Rosh Kollel says. Okay, any questions, comments?
It's Pharisee Israel is saying that this space doesn't actually contain the tumor at all. It channels it safely out.
Sort of gives it like a release valve that allows it to escape. Yeah. It's very interesting. Conceptually, it's interesting.
It says if you try to contain it, you can't.
Right.
If it's sealed perfectly, it doesn't contain.
Right.
See.
Okay.